At some point in your 40s, something quiet begins to happen. Nothing dramatic, nothing that anyone else can clearly see. But inside, you start to feel a strange realization. The life you carefully built no longer feels like it belongs to you. It doesn't happen all at once. It arrives slowly, in small moments. Sitting in a meeting and wondering why your heart feels absent, looking at the routines of your life and feeling a quiet distance from them, not because they are wrong, but because they no longer feel true. At 40, something inside us begins to shift. The life that once felt like an achievement starts to feel like something we are simply carrying in our 20s and 30s. Most of us were busy doing one thing, building a life that works, a career that feels stable, relationships that look successful, responsibilities that prove we are doing life correctly. We were taught to keep moving, to keep achieving, to keep becoming someone. And for a long time, that path made sense because survival was the priority. But by the time we reach 40, something begins to change. Survival is no longer the question. Meaning is, one day, often without warning, a quiet thought appears. Is this really the life I want to keep living? It can happen anywhere. Driving home from work, watching your children grow older, sitting alone with a cup of tea in the evening. Suddenly, you realize something uncomfortable. The life around you was built by a younger version of yourself, a version of you who had different fears, different dreams, different definitions of success. And now, you are no longer that person. This realization can feel confusing, even painful, because the life you built may not be a bad life. You may still have a stable career, a family you care about, a life that looks good from the outside, but inside, something feels misaligned. And that feeling carries a quiet kind of grief. The grief of realizing that growth sometimes means outgrowing even the things we once worked so hard to build. This is where midlife becomes misunderstood. People call it a midlife crisis, but often it is not a crisis at all. It is clarity. Clarity that arrives after decades of noise. Clarity that asks a simple question: if you stop living to satisfy expectations, what would your life look like now? Not the life that impresses others, not the life that proves anything, just the life that finally feels honest. At 40, many people begin to change the way they live. Sometimes the change is external, a different career, a slower lifestyle, a new direction. But more often, the change is internal. You stop chasing what used to matter. You stop forcing yourself to stay in places that quietly drain your spirit. And slowly, you begin building something different. Not a perfect life, but a truer one. Realizing your old life no longer fits does not mean you failed. It means you grew, and growth always rearranges the shape of our lives. At 40, the quiet invitation is not to destroy everything. It is simply this: to listen honestly, to release gently, and to allow your life to become something new. Because sometimes the most important realization of midlife is this: you are not lost. You are simply no longer meant to live the life that belonged to your past self. And that quiet realization may be the beginning of the most authentic chapter of your life. Thank you for watching. If this reflection spoke to something quiet in your heart, subscribe to at Whispering Nature YT for more gentle reflections on the inner life of 40.